All right, guys, we are live with Scratchin and Survivin. If you are watching, that probably means that you're still alive in your survivor pool. So, congratulations. And let's just dive into it. All right, guys, let's head over to survivorgrid.com. Let's take a look at the whole picture, what we're looking at for this week. And let me pop that screen up. So, it's going to take me a minute, of course, because I'm terrible at this. But, all right. We've got Survivor Grid up, and the obvious pick this week, you're seeing Buffalo, huge favorite. Is Buffalo going to lose this week? No. But is that how we play Survivor? Not necessarily, right? It's not always about advancing to the next week. It's about giving us a strategy here that we can win the entire pool. So, as you've heard me say many times, this is about figuring out the type of pool you're in, how many players are in the pool, how many entries are left, and what the rules are. If you have a lot of double picks coming up, we're going to play this differently than we would if this is just single entry each and every week, single pick. You can only pick a team one time and you're out if they lose, things like that. So let's assume this is a standard type of pool. And first, let's just go over what we're looking at here for the future. Now, Buffalo, a lot of easy games in the future. That's why it's 35% being picked right now, according to Survivor Grid. But what does that mean? Does that mean that this is necessarily a good play from a leverage standpoint, or is it a bad play from a leverage standpoint? Again, that's going to matter on the type of pool that you're in. So let's just kind of go over what we've got on the future, what we're looking at in the future for Buffalo and what they have up. So if we go ahead to week 8, they get Miami. Seemingly game they should win, right? Most of these games are games they should win. Miami, Jacksonville, the Jets, Indianapolis, 4 games in a row, week 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now, I'm in a pool, actually, a league where come week 9. Now, right now, we're actually making double picks, weeks 3, 4, and 5. And then come week 9, depending on how many people are left, we may have to make double picks as well. So in a pool like that, if I only had one entry, I'd have to make a serious consideration here on not taking Buffalo. If I'm in a pool with not too many people left, let's say under 50, I've got one entry, Buffalo might still be the play here. We could actually sort this. Let's look. If we go to week 8, you've got Kansas City is going to be an obvious play here against the Giants, the Rams against Houston. So you've got options. You got Seattle against Jacksonville. Week 8 looks to be a fairly easy week. Let's sort week 9. You got that Buffalo game, like I mentioned, but you got Miami playing Houston. Right now looks like a game you'd want to take. We're going to probably be fading Houston quite a bit here this year now that they lost Taylor. So Miami's a possibility. That's a team that you probably would not have taken until this week, unless you're taking them in week 6 against Jacksonville. Indianapolis, another team that you probably would not take, although week 6, they also have an easy game with Houston. But we're looking at week 9 playing the Jets, another team. So we've got options here in week 8. We've got options in week 9. How are we looking in week 10? Buffalo looks like the best pick. Just looking forward, again, Indianapolis against Jacksonville. Dallas against Atlanta looks like a game that we'd probably want to target. Pittsburgh, Detroit, I don't know. I mean, they're showing it right now at -7, but Pittsburgh and Detroit might be a lot closer to each other than we think. And then we've got Denver playing Philadelphia, which that's another one that I don't know necessarily right now that line's going to be 6.5, although that's what this website thinks. Denver would be at home, so certainly going to be a favorite in that game, but we'll see. I don't know if there's that huge of a difference right now between Denver and Philadelphia. So you see, we've got options, and I'm just kind of thinking this out loud with you guys while I do this. I set it up ahead of time, but it's going to be different. Like I said, for each and every pool that we're in. So I'm looking at this from the standpoint of the pools that I'm in, and I'm in some massive pools, a lot of people, a lot of entries. So I have to think of this differently than you guys who are playing in the smaller pools, right? So let's just sort this again by win percentage. And like I said, obviously, Houston should be a layup. Now, I've lost in these pools before. I don't know how many years ago it was, where Arizona went into New England as a 14-point underdog. I had multiple picks, like 2 or 3 entries in a pool that all, excuse me, that all took New England, and that game wound up being a loser. Arizona goes into New England. Arizona was not very good, and they win that game. So strange things can happen. I don't anticipate it here, obviously, with not much of a quarterback situation in Houston. So if you want to play it safe, Buffalo is going to be the obvious play. But let's go to the spreadsheet so we can get a little bit more in depth on just which teams we're going to take in what situations. So if you bear with me 1 second, I will bring up the spreadsheet and see what that looks like. All right. So I've got the spreadsheet up, and again, I put in the money lines for what the implied odds are, win probability, and these are, the money line is going to be sort of a middle between the favorite and the underdog. That's going to give you a good idea of what the actual win probability is for these teams, because we're eliminating the juice on both sides of this game. If you understand sports betting and money lines at all, or really all bets that the sports book's going to offer you, there's juice involved, meaning by juice, that's what the sports book is taking. That's sort of their service fee for providing the bets and liquidity. So we're going to find a midpoint on the money line, and I do that here, and then I just convert that to win probability. If you go check out inside the Sharp app, we have the Sharp Academy. I've got all those calculations and a bunch of videos there. If you're interested in sports betting at all, I would definitely suggest downloading the Sharp app and checking out all the Sharp Academy videos. Even if you're experienced in sports betting, there's going to be some stuff in there that may help you, may just trigger some ideas in your brain on how to change the way you're handicapping, or add something to your handicapping. So I would strongly suggest doing that. And of course, if you're looking for actual bets, models, professional models, a lot of the coaches that we have over in at sharpbets.app, they're giving out their picks in Discord and at sharpbets.app. We've also got something on there called the Sharp Report. It's loaded up by Anthony every day. He's got access to an offshore sports book, and that book is going to show, or that book's telling him where the sharp money is and where the square money is. Why that's important is, obviously, we want to be more often than not on the side of the sharp money. We want to go against where the public is. And we also get the information of what the sports book's liability is on that report. I added it to my handicapping, and my handicapping has just gotten even better. So I've been able to accumulate even more units than I had been without using that tool. So just that alone is worth the price of admission. So if you head on over to sharpbets.app, use code Statsational, 10% off, and you'll get all that information. Head over to our Discord as well, and just say hi and ask any questions away. But all right, sorry to break into commercial there, but let's get back to the spreadsheet. As you see, I sorted this out. It's actually not sorted perfectly here by the money line and win probability. But what we see is, now I've got this down to 15% because before we went on the air here, I just want to look at what, if I lowered the future value weight, and for you guys who've been watching this since the beginning, the future value weight, I've come up with a formula to weight future value. Now, one thing I didn't mention, as we progress here week by week in these pools, the future value weight needs to come down because there's less future value, or there's less future. There's not as many weeks, right? And presumably you're going to be losing people each week in your pool. So if you started out with 200 people and you're down to 100, and now we're in week 4, you're going to really want to lower wherever you thought your the future value weight should be. Now, you might not be using a spreadsheet like this, but calculating it in your mind, right? As we get down the fewer amount of entries that are left, we want to be a little bit more chalky. Let other people take chances the closer we're getting to that finish line. We take chances early in larger pools because we need to have an advantage here late. We need to have some good teams late to possibly pick. But as we get closer to the finish line, we may start to get more chalky. Now, when we get real close to the finish line, when we're down to just a handful maybe of picks, that's when game theory really ramps up, and we can start possibly taking teams that aren't necessarily the best team that week, but if that team wins, we win the entire pool. So we may not always be taking the best team, but we have a shot to scoop the pool, and that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to advance. We're not trying to win. We're trying to win the entire pool, right? We're not just trying to win this week. So to win this week, easily, Buffalo, they're going to win. You're going to advance. You can tell all your friends how great you are that you made it all the way to week 5. But is that the right play? Now, in a small pool with not a lot of entries, let's say you're in a pool down to 50 entries. I would say go ahead, take Buffalo this week without a doubt. All right. Buffalo would be the play because we don't have that many entries. Let other people start to knock themselves out. We're still fairly early. Let other people take some chances in a pool like that. Now, if I'm in a massive pool, then if you're in a massive pool, you should have taken my advice and had multiple picks. I'm in pools where I have multiple picks. Now, you see, let me just change the entries to 1. When we change it to 1, it's going to show us, yes, indeed, we should be taking Buffalo. That makes sense. If I knock this down to a future value of 1, what if I had it at 100? I've only got 1 bullet, okay, but I'm in a pool that still has 1,000 people left, and I'm just one of the 1,000. Taking Buffalo doesn't give us that much of an edge here. Sure, it advances us a week, but now the spreadsheet's telling me, you know what, take Cincinnati here. Now, Cincinnati, the best team? No, they're like the 3rd team on the list, 4th team on the list, likely to win this week, but they still have a 76% chance to win. They're playing Jacksonville. And what this is saying, what the spreadsheet is saying is we don't have that many more opportunities to take Cincinnati. Now, in a small pool, that doesn't really matter. In a large pool, it does. Let 35% of the pool, which is what we're getting right now, about 35% of pools take Buffalo. Let them take Buffalo. Let them advance. Hopefully, we take Cincinnati in advance, and now we put them at a more difficult position going later into the pool, where hopefully we're surviving deep into the pool. And now we've got a team like Buffalo. As you saw, those weeks where Buffalo's really good in the middle, they're week 8, 9, and 10. We did have some other options, and we'll see when we get to those weeks if that's the advantageous play to play those other options. But you're going to see people are going to heavily take Buffalo this week. They'll take Buffalo week 8, week 9. It could be a situation in week 10 where not that many people have a chance to take Buffalo. And if you're in a large pool, that's where we start to get the edge. Okay, so if I'm in a large pool and I have 1 bullet, I'm taking Cincinnati. If I'm in a pool with not a lot of people left, under 100, certainly under 50. I know my brother's in a pool where he's down to about 15 people, didn't start out with that many people. 100%, you need to take Buffalo in those type of pools. Now, let's just take a look. Now, I'm in a pool with double picks, like I mentioned, in week 3, 4, and 5. Now, week 3 was fairly easy. Most of you should have advanced. If you were in week 3, you should have advanced. None of the real teams that should have won lost. We could have had that with Baltimore. And if you were watching this, we did not have Baltimore, so that would have been an advantage to us. But Baltimore squeaks that one out with a late field goal. So I want to just reduce. If I had in that pool, I've been doing 100% weight on the future because I have double picks in week 3, 4, 5, and then double picks week 9 on, depending on how many people are left. So I need to be a little bit more risky with my picks in doing that. I started out with 100%. I probably want to knock that down to like 80% in that pool, and I've got like 40 entries left. Now my spreadsheet is taking forever to load. I think we're down to about let's just call it like 900 entries left in that pool. Now, if I do 40 entries and I've got 80% value, you'll see now I'm a little heavier weighted on Cincinnati. And the spreadsheet actually wants me to take some Chicago because I'm weighting the future. Now, you don't have to necessarily, obviously. You don't have to stay true to the spreadsheet. Now, this is going to be a tricky one. People are going to look at Detroit. No one's going to really take Chicago. Taking 5 of my 40 entries, I might tone that down. But it does put the seed in your head here that in a large pool like this, having to take double picks, I might have to sprinkle in a Chicago bet or 2 on a double pick because this is a situation where actually this one I have less. I have less. That the pool that I have 40 left is actually like 4,000 people, and it's not double picks yet. So I apologize for that. So on that one, um, again, we could sprinkle in some Chicago. It's not double picks. But if you're in a large pool like that and you've got multiple entries, this becomes the advantage of taking multiple entries. We're unlikely to want Chicago at any point in the year. They're getting Detroit at home. Are they going to win? I mean, they're only a 58% chance of winning. It's not a huge percentage, but is this a situation where you're going to want to take that risk? Now, if I have one bullet, absolutely not. We're not taking that risk. Like I said, Cincinnati becomes a much better risk. But when you've got multiple bullets, this becomes the advantage. This is why I said I like to have 2 to 5% of entries of the total amount of entries. I want to have 2 to 5% of those. So in a 1,000-person pool, I'd like to have 2 to 5%, 20 to 50 entries in a 1,000 entry pool, because now that gives me the ability to make some crazy picks like Chicago, right? I can mix in a couple of Chicago picks. It likes Tennessee. Now, Tennessee against the Jets. Should Tennessee win? I know they're a little banged up. Certainly, though, 75% chance to win. It's a pick 25% of the pool's taking. We're going to probably want to be under the market on there. But if we have a lot of entries, if I have 40 entries and I take 3 or 4 of them, I'm going to be at 10% or less of my entries. We'd almost want, in that situation, Tennessee to lose, but we are slightly hedged. I hate the word, but slightly hedged there, where we're going to have a few entries on Tennessee. What else is it like? It likes Green Bay, which is not one of the larger favorites, probably middle of the pack on the favorites. 72%, maybe just above the middle. 72% to win. But you see, they're only being taken at 2%. So we want to have a couple, maybe 2, maybe 3 Green Bay entries if I've got a lot. If in this situation, I've got 40 entries, because now if something crazy happens and this becomes one of those weeks where just the unthinkable happens, where Cincinnati loses, Tennessee loses, we're going to knock out a significant portion of the pool. I've got Green Bay, who have decent future value, but now we're going to lose some picks. Obviously, if that happens, it becomes a massacre type of a weekend. But we're going to have the advantage of having those multiple picks, having a Green Bay in the mix. So those are the teams here that you should be looking at. Certainly the one bullet, small pool, we're taking Buffalo. One bullet, large pool, we're taking Cincinnati. And then we've got to mix it up. We've got a lot of bullets here in a large pool, with a pool that has either a lot of participants, or pools that we need to take multiple picks. Then we need to diversify a little bit, maybe mix in a Chicago, a Green Bay, Tennessee, teams like that. Now, the other thing, as we progress here, if you do have multiple picks in a pool, you need to also figure out how do you want to have that line go. What I mean by that is, if I've got massive favorites, if my line looks like the big teams, if I've already taken a Buffalo, Kansas City, and a Tampa, those are like, some of the best teams in the league, the Rams, whatever it is, then do you want to now offset that a little bit and take, if you had a line with Chicago, maybe put Chicago in against, with those really good teams. Now, if you have a line where you've got some really weak teams that have advanced, now I would say Carolina, but Carolina might be very good. A lot of people have taken Carolina, Denver. Let's just call them middle of the road teams right now. If you have a line with none of the really strong top teams, you have to think, maybe I want to take a Buffalo with that line and just kind of make sure that line keeps on moving ahead, right? So there's a lot of things, not just the teams we're picking, but now we want to figure out, how do we keep the, which line do we want, and how do we want to form that line that we're taking? Do we want it to be all strong, chalky teams? Or if it's really, really chalky with my picks, do I want to take the risk on taking a long shot, a team that's not very good, and then adding that in? Because understand this, just because you advance, and let's say there's 40% of the original pool is left. Let's say you've got 40 out of 100 people left in your pool. Those 40 entries are not all the same. They're not all going to have the same amount of chance, right? We all, in theory, have the same chance starting on day one of winning this pool. But if you've gotten away with taking, in the first 3 weeks, teams that are not very good, but you caught them on the weeks that they won, well, if I was buying your entry, I'm going to pay more than it's worth, right? So if, let's make the numbers easy. It's a $10 pool with 100 people. That's $1,000 in the pool. We're down to 50 people, right? Your value is now that your value on your entry is now $20 in theory, but it probably is worth a whole lot more than $20 or a decent amount more than $20 if you've taken really bad teams in advance, right? So you've got more equity than a team that has knocked off, let's say they've taken Tampa, Buffalo, and the Rams already. Well, that line is worth a lot less than $20 or a decent amount less than $20. So what I'm saying is, do we want to continue taking the risky play? And if you have the 3-week teams and that now you have a $25 or $30 in value in equity type of line, do we want to increase that equity and really risk it up and take another weak team, add that Chicago, let's say, if that was the play to the mix? And I know you guys aren't going to like Chicago. I don't like Chicago either here. But just saying, if that's the type of team, you could probably mix in, maybe a different team here and take a long shot if you've got a lot of picks. But what I'm saying is, that's the type of team where, do I want to risk my higher equity line on a game like that, or do I want to put that in on a line that has a less equity, right? If I take Chicago and I have less equity on that type of an entry, maybe take a shot with that one because that one's worth less. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So if I have favorites, a lot of favorites, teams with high future value that I cannot take anymore, that entry is worth a lot less than my entry that I've already been able to take some long shots, some risk, and it's paid off. That's worth a lot more. So which one do you want to take the risk on? Do you want to try to risk it some more with a riskier team and then even increase your equity on that sheet even greater? Or do I want to kind of mitigate risk a little bit, bring it back to what a norm would be and get that back? Let's say I have a $30 entry. I'm going to drop it down to $25 by taking Buffalo and winning, right? So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, by all means, ask away. And yeah, guys, listen, we do this every week. I appreciate you guys checking it out. And when you head over to the Discord channel, certainly on DFS Army, I do check DFS Army quite a bit, but where I am mostly is on the sharpbets.app or Sharp app side of the Discord. So if you guys do have questions, DM me, whatever it is. I always like to help, but I think these videos hopefully answer a lot of your questions. So until next week, good luck. Let's survive one more time, and we'll do it again, same time next week. See you guys.